It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fantatrax TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning, Tatooine. Welcome to the show, your weekly recap of everything Star Wars. I'm your host, Brian Cameron, and joining me this week from Fantatrax.com, Mr. Mark Newbold.
Hello, I thought I was Paul Naylor. I'm really confused.
Not this week. Poor Paul. He's gone on holiday. He's left the sunny UK to probably rainier climes abroad.
I would imagine, yes.
Tonight we're trying as an experiment as well, so we're going live to Instagram. So if you're watching us on Instagram, welcome to the show. We won't be able to see your comments on Instagram, sadly. We're just trying something new, but if you want to comment and join in and be part of the show, head over to Facebook or YouTube, where you'll find us, and you can interact with us live there. But otherwise, enjoy the show. We'll get your feedback after the show, see what it was, see what the transmission to Instagram was. It's all one big technical experiment tonight, but hopefully it goes well. And we've got an additional new audience joining us for the adventure of this week's Star Wars news. Should we find out what's coming up?
Let's do it.
Let's go. So coming up first on the show, we're going to hear from John Boyega on the new Jedi Order and much, much more.
We're also going to hear about Lounge Lightspeed. It's coming to Disneyland Paris at the end of the month.
We'll be checking out the Mouse Droid from Galaxy's Edge. It's part of the Galactic Archive series. Looking
forward to seeing that. We're also going to talk about Ryan Kiera Armstrong leading in the new Buffy the Vampire, reboot, I guess.
Yeah, brilliant casting, I think. I thought she was brilliant in Skeleton Crew, so looking forward to that. We'll also be having an episode of Jabba's Court, where we'll be debating whether the critical success of Andor and Disney Plus indicates a need for a shift in focus for Star Wars TV.
So a nice meaty one. Star Wars Gaming, we'll look at Outlaws, Destiny 2, Fortnite, Indiana Jones, and Darth Jar Jar, which I'm very much looking forward to digging into.
Get a first look at the cover of Star Wars The Last Order as well. That was released this week, so we'll show you that, and we'll find out all your thoughts on that as well, Mark. So a lot to discuss. Should we get stuck straight into it, and let's hear from what John Boyega's had to say on the new Jedi Order?
Absolutely.
So John Boyega was getting interviewed this week, and he was asked about Star Wars, as you would if you were interviewing John Boyega. And he made a comment that he hasn't seen Daisy face-to-face for a while, and that he found out about her return to Star Wars online. Made the comment that being a genuine fan, he's always following content, obviously getting it all from Fantatrax.com, I believe.
Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And he seems excited about it. Doesn't really comment as to whether he's involved, but the fact about you find out about it online would suggest potentially no. But early days in the project, you sign up your lead first, and then everything else kind of falls in place. And he seems a little bit happier talking Star Wars. There was a kind of a period where his comments were a little bit more grim.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems to be out at a lot more events these days, conventions-wise. So he seems to be a sort of facing the audience a little bit more than he used to, which is, I think, is a positive thing.
Yeah.
And so obviously the questions, as you say, the questions come at him, and yeah, he seems a bit more rounded, a bit happier about throwing those answers back.
I think as the actor portraying the character, he was probably as frustrated as the fan base was in terms of his character's arc wasn't, or didn't live up to maybe the promise that episode 7 kind of gave us that maybe.
I think so. I think it was more 9 than anything that bugged him. And I still think that when he saw the Trevorrow treatment, that the flag waving Finn right at the front, leading the revolution. So goodness knows what he must have thought of season 2 of Andor, because that was very much in that wheelhouse, wasn't it? But yeah, I think he would have liked. Obviously, he's an actor; he wants to be right at the front, especially on a Star Wars project. But I think, to me, that's my read of it. I think that was kind of what he hoped it would be, and obviously, episode 9 was what episode 9 was.
Yeah, it's still one that I struggle with. Is episode 9? It was it finished the arc, but it kind of undid what 8 was, which I know a lot of fans were wanting. But at some point, sometimes I kind of feel you kind of just have to commit to the direction that you've gone, even if you feel that that direction is maybe not proven to have won over the audience. And I kind of felt 9 tried to undo so much, but it's impossible to undo and then probably satisfactorily conclude something in 2 hours. And it became its own sort of judge, jury, and executioner in a little way.
Yeah, it's a problem really, because you're right. You're not at the end of. It's not just a sequel to 8. It's not just the end of a trilogy. It's the end of the whole 9 triple trilogy cycle. So
yeah,
to try and excuse me, to try and walk back, which they kind of did, to try and walk back what happened in 8 and reset back to where they would have took it in 7. That wasn't the world we were in. So like or not like 8, you're right. Yeah, they should have just gone with it.
But, I kind of felt like it didn't satisfy fans of the sequels, and it didn't satisfy people who weren't fans of the sequels. And I find it a film I find hard to go back to watch, and despite it being Star Wars, and that's never a good thing, I think.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to what they did with Daisy's character, because I thought, even as not being a fan of the sequels, there were moments during that trilogy where I thought the character showed great promise. And I think with the right script, and they're throwing everything at this, they've taken in many great writers, and they're trying to find the right, they've obviously got a concept, and they're trying to find the right story to go along with, that they're giving it the time it probably needs to develop. And so I hope she gets something good to work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because there's precedent, of the master or the apprentice becoming the master, and moving through the training and so on and so forth. And also, because Rey was such a vivid and vibrant character, and we are moving 15 years on, but she's still only going to be in her mid-30s. It's not like she's an old lady or anything remotely like that. So she's still going to be at the peak of her powers, if you like. So I'm hoping that's kind of the dynamic that they show her as she's trained and she's progressed, moved forward, brought people with her. I'm hoping it's a very forward-thinking, sort of more on the front foot than on the back foot kind of story.
Yeah. We're going to be talking a little bit later in the show about an upcoming novel focused around John Boyega's character of Finn. And I always feel like when characters are made available to literature, often means that character's got no future in live action, or it's always at risk. Otherwise, they'd be locked off and untouchable. But do you think there's a potential future still in live action for John Boyega? There's no doubt in his talent as an actor, and potentially just not given the right story arc.
Yeah, I would say it's probably that. I think, again, going back to the Trevorrow treatment for 9, which felt very much like that Revolution kind of storyline. I think if John was involved in, or if John as Finn was involved in something a bit more progressive, if you like, in that sense, because 9, he was just part of the broader cast. Yeah. He wasn't integral to the plot of 9 to the degree that he certainly was in 7. And 8 is a very mixed bag of that anyway. It's very Rey focused. But I think if he was given the right thing and he could see a path forward for his character to progress in a different direction, not just the sidekick kind of guy. Yeah. Not that he's ever going to lead a film as it stands, but you get the right plot, you get the right scenario. You've got Disney Plus as well. So, there's options. I think he would come back. I think if it was a right project, come on, Harrison Ford came back. He was never going to come back.
That's true. So. Hello to Jonathan there in the chat. The best thing I think could happen is Lucasfilm were to sit down for a drink with him. And if you're going to sit down with someone for a drink, where would you go, Mark?
Oh, I would go to Lounge Lightspeed at Disneyland Paris, Brian.
That's so slick. Such a slick link. Coming to Disneyland Paris from the 31st of May is a new feature called Lounge Lightspeed. Basically, a Star Wars-themed snack and bar location. And we've kind of seen in the last few weeks something similar happen in Australia, where there's going to be a Star Wars themed cafe. And I'm wondering if this is now a new licensing line that maybe Lucasfilm are pursuing, and we're going to see more Star Wars themed cocktail stroke bar stroke cafe type locations popping up around the world.
That would be very welcome if it was the case. I mean, I didn't know about this. A friend of mine, Cole, saw it on Facebook and put the question out there saying, does anybody know about this? And then I think like a day later, it all started to bubble out. It's a great idea. I mean, we're not getting the mini Galaxy's Edge we thought we were going to get at Paris now. So that's not happening. Star Tours is still there, but the more things you can filter into places like this, the better. We've just been to Japan and we saw what was there, and that could certainly hold or benefit from something like this. So I hope you're right. Yeah, if it is something they're sort of rolling out to the parks and beyond, not necessarily just the parks, but outside the parks as well.
Yeah.
How cool would that be? Yeah. Another reason to go to Paris, Brian.
Yeah, it was. I forget the whole story with the one in Australia, but I'm sure it was just like a cafe. In Australia. I'm trying to have a quick Google to see if I can find it. At the Victoria Museum, Star Wars Galactic Cafe opening up there. So I wonder if it's just something that's happening slowly.
Why not? We're approaching the 50th, so get these things out there. People are going to be. Star Wars is going to be so on people's minds that if there's a place like this to go, even if it's just like a coffee bar kind of vibe on a bigger scale, of course. I'm not talking Starbucks or anything, or Stardust. I think then there's options.
Like the it's almost a perfect name. Imagine you had a Star Wars branded coffee shop that's opening up all around the world. Starbucks, what would you call it? Star something. Sanders asking the big question here. Is this a pilot to test the watch for more Star Wars content within Disneyland Paris, aka something could lead to the rumoured Star Wars area behind Star Tours? I think there's a growing chance you may get a Star Wars themed area in Paris. I'd not say it's going to be Galaxy's Edge like, because it doesn't feel like they're investing in additional rides at the moment, but you could get like the Star Wars theme bar, a little kind of themed kind of area that would maybe include some stores and merch and so on.
Totally, it would make all the sense, especially if it's near Star Tours. I mean, I know we've had the conversation before. I think you and Paul have talked about it on GMT about, you've got Galaxy's Edge and Star Tours is probably, a couple of minutes walk away. And if they ever move Star Tours, put it in the park and, give it some sort of spruce up, because why would you want to get rid of Star Tours? It's too cool. There's different things that you could do to keep Star Wars in people's line of sight. And most importantly, next May we get Mandalorian and Grogu. The May after that we get Starfighter. Hopefully not that long after that, or around about then we've got numerous other films. The Daisy film we've kind of alluded to, and just other things. So Star Wars is starting to, not that it's ever tipped or dipped that much, because we've got Andor going on and everything else, but Star Wars could really escalate in terms of profile with the movies coming back.
Absolutely. It's an interesting one, and I'm not 100% certain of how much additional investment they've got planned for Paris at this time, because obviously they've made a huge commitment, and the Star Wars rumoured land has kind of disappeared off the sort of planned map at the moment. But I think it's always going to be in the conversation anytime something's getting developed. Obviously we had the Sanders also making a very good point that the land behind Star Tours is still unused after all, so there is the space there. Absolutely. There's probably more likely the next development or major development for Star Wars going to be in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the 7th park. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see what they take there.
And because you're starting from scratch there, it's interesting what parts of Galaxy's Edge may transfer over there and what parts don't. That might say a lot about where the future direction of Star Wars in the parks is going to head.
Yeah, or whether they just go for something completely original.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Something you can get in the parks at the moment It's your very own Mouse Droid. Why you would want one? Why would you want a droid?
Oh, right. Come on. You know you want one of these.
What does it do? What's its purpose?
You can wear them as roller skates.
There, that's about it. Although it doesn't look like it would be comfortable.
No, it doesn't actually, does it? No, it's not exactly a massage friendly, is it? I think they're fantastic. I mean, I've seen a couple of videos. A friend of ours has got one. He's been rolling it around his living room. They look the part. They're very tidy. I don't think they're crazy expensive either.
$100, which I thought was not bad.
That's not bad at all. So I can see the attraction.
But all it has to do is make the noise, hasn't it? Really.
Exactly.
It's going to move about like a remote control car. Probably hasn't great movement, but what you really need is for it to disappear at great speed.
At the end of a boot.
Yeah, as Sandra says, you can kick it around the house.
There you go. He's not wrong.
But for $100, very well price point. I think it's a huge box. It's to scale. Something that you could see picking up maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think if you're a costumer, if you're I don't know what the clearance would be for the droid builders or the garrisons or any of those things, but you could definitely see it's quite an easy and affordable, if it's up to spec, option to have as a droid accompanying a troop, let's say.
Yeah.
Or if you're just a Star Wars fan, you want to roll it around the cul-de-sac. It's there to be done. So I'd certainly get one if it came my way. Yeah.
Yeah. You can check out a video of it from Star Wars Replicas in the show description. We've got the links all in there. They do fantastic Star Wars videos, and they've got a really good video of them unboxing and playing around with this little mouse droid. Next up in the news was quite big news, I think. The new Buffy the Vampire Slayer series that is coming has announced its new lead. Sarah Michelle Gellar put in a Zoom call to someone that we know quite well, is Ryan Kiera Armstrong, who was in Skeleton Crew. And I think a fantastic casting. Not someone, I have to admit, that I thought of when I saw the role coming up. But having seen her role in Skeleton Crew, it makes brilliant sense, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. I think she looks the part. She's like Sarah was when they cast the original Buffy cast. She was the youngest of the whole cast by quite a way, if I remember. And Ryan's 15. So I don't know how soon they're getting into filming and such, but she's a good age, the right age for a character that would fit into that sort of Buffyverse at that age, because that seems to be the sort of the time that these characters come through into their powers and such. And Sarah Michelle Gellar's involved as well, as you say. She did the announcement, and she was so. I mean, all the kids in Skeleton Crew are brilliant. Obviously, we've got Kiriana Kratter on our Celebration Making Tracks GMT crossover coming up fairly soon, and so it's a fantastic cast. But you could totally see Ryan in that role, that kind of sassy role, because she looks like she's kind of halfway between Buffy and Faith. She's got that about her. So I'm very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find out if it told you when it's due to come, but I believe it's very, very soon. And they're moving pretty quick on this. I'm just trying to find it, and I can't find a date. But yeah, I think it's one that's planned to come to Hulu very, very fast. So
good.
As you say, she's at that right age. She's got the right spirit, I think, for that character as well.
Totally.
And
yeah, totally.
I always find it interesting. It's a heavy lift to take a series that's kind of iconic like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and then try and replicate that in some ways. So it's very interesting that Sarah Michelle Gellar herself is involved. Joss Whedon, obviously not. And obviously there's a lot of baggage around projects that Joss Whedon's involved in, which we'll leave for a discussion for another day, I think. But it's a tough task, but I think she's got the ability to do it, given the right story. Because it has to be original. it has to have a different take somehow.
It does. I mean, classic thing about Buffy was obviously you had the Scooby Gang, and each season, I mean, season one was like a half season, but each season you had the monster of this, not just the monster of the week, although there often was, but kind of the big bad of the season. And so I think there's kind of a formula in that sense, but everything else that went around it, because you followed Buffy through high school into college and beyond into working life and all the losses and triumphs that she had, which, I mean, Buffy's one of my all-time favorite shows, so I'm stoked about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if they can get it right, and because they're calling it a reboot, but from what I understand, it is kind of a continuation sort of 20 years on.
Yeah, I believe it's she's effectively the new chosen one, which you have to be careful when you mention that around a Star Wars news set. People get very confused. But yeah, it's you have to get the right cast alongside her for it to work, because, as you say, so much of Buffy was the Scooby Gang, and they all clicked in their own way. An incredibly diverse group of characters, and so not the easiest one to pull together. But and a little aspect, Skeleton Crew was a little bit like that. It was kind of like a diverse group of 4 characters that you wouldn't necessarily put together.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that because the nature of streaming TV now, you don't tend to get 20 episode seasons like you did back when Buffy was on. I forget. I think she was on the CW and the WB. I think she moved between networks. She was certainly on Fox at one point. But you know, you're not going to get that with a streaming series. You'll probably get 10 episodes, and that's probably what you'll get per season, and that's fine. That's how streaming is. So I'm hoping that means that if they do another season of Skeleton Crew, and I don't know that they're looking at doing it anytime soon, because it is the kind of show now that they could do something every 5 years if they wanted to with Skeleton Crew. And so if they can work that in, they can figure something out, then hopefully it means she can do both.
Yeah, it is a difficult one. She'll have signed a contract, I'm sure, before they put the video public. But there will be probably conditions as to when our availability is, and it depends how flexible they are, and it also depends how much the networks want to work with each other as well, I think, in terms of releasing people for other shows, because I imagine they have a very tight leash over someone's schedule when you sign up to be a lead on a TV series.
There is a classic example in relation to Buffy, though. You had Armin Shimmerman was Principal Snyder and Quark on DS9, so it can be done. Yeah. You know, it can be done, but yeah, it's let's see. Let's hope it doesn't mean that Fern's no longer a part of Skeleton Crew if they decide to do more.
Yeah, and as Sandra said, there's a 2026 release planned, so shooting later this year for release next year. So moving quick on that project.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Should we head over to Jabba's court and have a debate on Andor and Star Wars TV in general, Mark?
I would be delighted, Brian.
Would you? Excellent. We should do that. Let me find the button. I can press it and it'll make it look slick. Let's go. So this week on Jabba's Court, we're debating whether, with the critical success of Andor, whether Star Wars TV needs to change ever so slightly to continue this upward trend of praise, which a lot of the TV shows haven't necessarily had from the critics, or in part from the fan base. It's probably cautioned by the fact that we don't know viewing numbers for Andor, and various analytics are out there that are somewhat contentious, and we had a debate on that last week. But certainly from a fan base and from the professional critics, we'll call them, very positive for Andor, to the fact that it's breaking all kinds of records in terms of positivity. I think season 2, all in the 9s on IMDb's ratings, which is kind of unheard of.
Yeah, I think I read that. I know certainly the first 5 all had 9+, and it's the first TV show ever to have 5 episodes have 9s. I don't know how it's ended at the end. From what you've just said, it sounds like all 10 episodes had 9s. That's incredible. No show, not just Star Wars, no shows had that. I think to your point, when Mando came out, it was so fresh, so new, so surprising because we were blown away by the stagecraft. We were getting Star Wars on television. It looked $1,000,000. ILM were working on it. We were waiting for Rise of Skywalker. It was a different kind of world back then, and it caught the zeitgeist. And as a consequence, for the next 3 years, pretty much everything you saw in a supermarket had Grogu on it. So, and that was great because it put Star Wars front and center, but it did very much become the Mando and Grogu show for a little while. And then we move into all the other projects that get received positively or negatively. And then you get to Andor, which is such a different beast because it's mature, because it's, as Mark says with me on Making Tracks, it's premium drama. You know, if it wasn't Star Wars, if it was a political thriller, we'd be gripped. It's like Line of Duty gripping, you know. And so it's a weird benchmark to compare any other Star Wars to because it feels like it's so its own thing.
Yeah.
And I worry because of that.
I think it's important to note at this point that Tony Gilroy himself has said that without The Mandalorian, there would be no Andor. And so, as you pointed out, The Mandalorian very different from Andor, but they can complement each other. And sometimes the success of one show can open the doors for other shows that potentially sat there on a shelf where people kind of like it but don't have the guts to do it. And I think a little bit of that was, you know, from the off, the Andor whole concept was going to be expensive.
Yeah.
And if The Mandalorian hadn't been as successful, certainly in terms of viewing numbers as it got in the early seasons, they wouldn't even have considered making that kind of investment in Andor. We're probably at a very different stage in the streaming world at this point in time where no show is going to get the kind of investment that Andor got. I think we're kind of past that point. So can they replicate what they've done in Andor? Not in terms of locations and probably scale, but that doesn't prevent them in terms of storyline doing something similar to Andor.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I think one of the things that's crossed my mind a lot actually watching Andor, and I'm not comparing the two shows, but I think back to Babylon 5. Babylon 5 was really hefty, heavy, weighty, political, lots of speeches. You could argue sometimes too many speeches, but the point was that you felt the import of everything that was happening. You got things on a galactic scale, but it's back in your old, 16:9 kind. It's the old framing of television. It wasn't broad, widescreen, cinematic scope like it is now, but it's still carried. And even though if people watch it fresh today, they might look at some of the visuals and kind of go, really? Back in the day, 30 odd years ago, it was peak television. And that was something done on a budget, done within confines. So I think to your point, I think, yes, Star Wars can. I mean, okay, you're throwing the gauntlet down to ILM, and every time George threw the gauntlet down to ILM, they delivered. So I think there's potential there that you could get it looking phenomenally impressive because the technology will move forward and make that side of it an achievable thing. But I don't think that's what makes Andor work. It's one of the many spices in the pot sort of thing that makes it work so well. But then so's great acting, great cast, great sound effects, great music, all the other elements that make Andor what it is. I think it can be done, but it's definitely a monster challenge should they want to go down that road.
Yeah. Far away on YouTube, making a comment here that Andor, Rogue One and A New Hope are all in the top 10 on Disney Plus tonight, and he hopes that, I'm assuming it's a he, it could be a she, they
it's
hope that it's acted a way in for some people, and I kind of hope that too. But I also think there's an element of it's reinvigorated the fan base a little bit because everyone's kind of talking positive about Star Wars, and there's always going to be people who don't like something legitimately. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I spoke about my dislike for the sequels earlier. That's just a personal preference. Other people love them, and great for them. And similar, some people don't like Andor, legitimate reasons, but there's always the people out there who make money off of peddling the hate, and Star Wars is a great platform to peddle hate on. They've kind of been buried throughout the season 2 of Andor, and it's allowed people just celebrating and loving Star Wars to sort of bubble to the top again. And so there's a great positivity about the fan base, I think, again, surrounding this whole release. So I think it's the fans going back. I know I've watched Rogue One since. I'm very excited to be going to see, it's not A New Hope, it's the original Star Wars. It wasn't A New
Star
Hope.
Wars, yeah.
On the 12th of June in London at the BFI, the original cut of Star Wars, because I've never actually seen it on the big screen because I'm far too young. Far too young.
Oh, shut up.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the original cut on the big screen, because that's something new for me, and actually find out who shot first. It's exciting.
Yes.
Find out what happens to the rebel scum as well. Do they succeed? We'll get a conclusion. Jonathan, and I guess we say some people loved it, some people didn't. From episodes 1 to 5 from season 2 were the weakest in his opinion, but you think it got better after that. He enjoyed the rest. Interested to find out, Jonathan, if you get the chance, if you go back and watch season 2 from the beginning, does your opinion change in any way? Because it is one of those slow burn series that ramps up and ramps up and ramps up. Sander making a point, even bad Star Wars has something to enjoy, be it its visuals, locations, the background, character design, whatever. Exactly. I think we can all get something out of any kind of Star Wars. If you want to find the good in something, you can.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one because not everything has to be done in the style of Andor. But I think what Andor gives, and The Mandalorian as well, proves that you don't need Jedi, you don't need Sith to make good Star Wars. That frees up a lot of creative. And you don't need the original trilogy characters in there either. You can go fresh and do something, a new take, try a new genre. I know Tony Gilroy suggested horror, and well, I'm not necessarily a big fan of horror when it comes to live action. I do love the horror comics that Star Wars does every Halloween. So I'm not against that idea necessarily either. And I think it would be positive to move away from, and I'm going to be critical here, like the Obi-Wan series, it didn't feel like it achieved anything story-wise, and it just felt like it was nostalgic for the sake of being nostalgic. I don't think we need that in Star Wars TV anymore. I think we need dynamic storytelling. And I think Andor maybe opens the door for more of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think you got to grasp the nettle. I interviewed Neil Scanlon a while ago, actually, talking about the creature shop, and he, in the flow of conversation, said this: if you're moving forward, you've just got to think, right, this is the direction we're going in. We're going to make a bold move, and that's the way we go. And the phrase he used was, you just got to grasp the nettle, and that's such a pertinent phrase. I think with going back to Andor, one of the interesting elements of the show is that even though it's so grounded, it's so, we're filming at the Barbican, it's very boots on the ground Star Wars, which I love. All the way through it, you've got characters, Palpatine's mentioned, Tarkin's mentioned, Vader isn't mentioned, but, all these other characters are mentioned, and you know what's down the line, and all of those elements come into the broader storyline if you consider Andor, Rogue One, and New Hope as one continuous thing, which it is. But my point is, all through that, you've got one character who's connected to Obi-Wan Kenobi, connected to Leia, connected to all these characters, connected to Vader and Anakin and Padme. And it's Bail Organa. And the guy's right there in the Senate, is right there, on the Yavin, next to all these other characters that we're watching live this very grounded life. And yet his daughter gets kidnapped in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he phones the space wizards to come and save her with a glowing stick. And so we're only ever one step away from a Sith or a Jedi or whatever. I love that.
It's a big galaxy, and we haven't even scraped the surface of it. We still haven't had, and I say it because we've got the animated Underground series at the moment. You've never really ventured into the underground of Star Wars in live action. And as much as he's a bounty hunter, the Mandalorian, he's a little bit goody two-shoes bounty hunter. You've never stepped into the nasty side of Star Wars, which is what I would like to see. I'd love to see a young Emperor Palpatine series. And we'll talk about nostalgia, but that for me would be epic. And I always recall that the Star Wars 1138, was it Star Wars 138? That wasn't the TV show. It was Star Wars Undergrounds, was George Lucas's concept of a Star Wars TV show.
Oh, Wonderworld.
Yeah.
1313.
Yeah. Was designed as a storyline involving a young Palpatine and how he was corrupted. That was this kind of ongoing arc behind that. And that I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah. The scope is phenomenal if they want to go down different roads. And I think that the different flavors, the fact that, yeah, that would be good. Definitely would be good. The fact that Skeleton Crew is so different to Mando, is so different to Andor, is so different to anything else, is a benefit, because in real life things are very different. It's like comparing, I don't know, a Formula One race to the Grand National. They're both races, but they're very different. So, it's light and shade.
Yeah. Jonathan making a great point there that he enjoyed it was a slow burn to begin with. He enjoyed the rest of the season and went on, but he's a fan of action and he missed that. And I think that's the key. How do you do Star Wars TV going forward? Is you've got to have the balance. You've probably got to have the deep dive political kind of drama that Andor was, but alongside that, your next show probably needs to be high energy action. And we probably haven't had that for a while in terms of Skeleton Crew was a bit of action, but it was centered around young kids. Andor's a deep dive politically. The next thing on TV we're going to see is Ahsoka, which promises to be high energy action because we've already spoken. It's going to be Admiral Akbar versus Admiral Thrawn.
But big war thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a protest going on in the comments, by the way.
I agree.
There is positive comments as well. I should throw in there. There we go.
I've got to say, I love the fact that I am still Paul Naylor.
Oh, I never updated it. There we go.
Don't update it. I'm more than happy with that.
We'll take that off. There we go.
It's all I ever dreamed of.
Shocking. I never thought to update the graphics on this one. The interesting bit for me is that can they be something for everyone? I think Andor's for a particular age group. And I think this is a thing that Disney's probably wrestled with most, has been how do you cater for the different age groups? And I don't think you can in one project. You've got to have different projects and accept some Star Wars isn't going to be for me, and hopefully the next project is.
Yeah. No, sorry, Bryce. Sorry, a bit of a lag there. No, I was going to say, I think in a world where we so got used to as kids and teenagers waiting 3 years for the next Star Wars thing to come along, I don't think it's a massive ask that if we have Andor now and then next year's Ahsoka and then the year after that something else, and not every flavour of ice cream is your favourite flavour of ice cream, but that your favourite ice cream is going to come round the next day. You know what I mean? It's that kind of it's all Star Wars, as somebody mentioned in there. Sander said, there's always something you can pull from any project, whether you love it or a bit ambivalent towards it. You know that it's coming.
I think the positive thing that Andor's probably done is opened the door up more for what comes next, because beyond Ahsoka Season 2, we don't have a clue at all what's coming Star Wars TV-wise. No. It is a completely blank slate, and Disney aren't going to allow it to be a blank slate because they've got to sell subscriptions for Disney+. So that's the interesting thing, I think. And I think the thing I find most positive out of everything is Tony Gilroy's not a Star Wars guy. And he'll hold his hands up straight away and say he's not a Star Wars guy. He has absolutely loved this process. He has absolutely loved making Andor, and every single interview that does, it bubbles through. He has loved the process of working with Lucasfilm, and Lucasfilm gets a lot of stick on this show, and many others, where it's due. Well, I think it's hats off to them that he has spoken in absolutely glistening terms about the support he's had from Lucasfilm and how the project wouldn't have been possible without their support. And I think that's a positive, because the hardest thing, I think, ever is getting creative talent to sign up to a project on the scale of Andor. As Tony Gilroy said, it's been 6 years of his life. And if you include Rogue One into that, almost 10 years.
Yeah.
It's a huge commitment to anyone's career if you're going to be a showrunner or director or writer, to make that time a kind of time commitment to any one show. The way that he's spoken about it must make people who probably thought, I don't want to go and work there because of the negativity that sometimes flies around Star Wars, and it can derail careers, undoubtedly. When you get someone with the respect Tony Gilroy has in the industry speaking so highly of working on a Star Wars project, that's got to prick up the ears of other creatives.
Absolutely, definitely, and I think it would hopefully make Lucasfilm look and think, we want, like, okay, it's a bad example, but I'm going to make it anyway. George brought Irving Kershner in because he knew Irving Kershner was a great safe pair of hands, and look at what we got with Empire. Now you can't go on at Kirsch for not being a Star Wars fan because he came on board in '78, and who outside of then a specific group of people was a Star Wars fan. It wasn't the thing that it is now. But the point is, it to your point, it definitely does open the doors for other people to come in. And one other thing that steps out to me on a huge scale is that we've had 4 weeks of Andor, 12 episodes over 4 weeks, and they've been doing press. They, being Tony and Diego and most of the cast, have been doing press all through that 4 weeks.
Yeah,
all of them. Okay, it's a nice, compact, tidy, period of time, but they've been front and center for that whole time. If they weren't hugely passionate, and I'm thinking specifically about Gilroy because we kind of know he's stepping off at least for a while, if not forever, but hopefully for a while. What would bring him back? What kind of storyline would bring him back? It's got to be pitched to him. You'd think that Rogue One was an easy pitch for him to come in and do his work on Rogue One, and then a sequel gets offered, and he's familiar with the Rogue One era and the Rogue One characters, and it's something he can pick up and run with, and God didn't he? But then if you sit down and go, well, Mon Mothma's still around after Return of the Jedi. Right, okay. And the second Death Star's blown up. Okay. And you've got a post-Empire Republic trying to get itself on its feet, and she's the figurehead leader. Let's do a story about that. Where's his connection to that? So you do kind of need some people with some knowledge coming in, because unless they do something filmic running off the back of Return of the Jedi to lead into that, the hook might not be there. So it's a trickier balance to find the right person. If indeed you can't get Tony Gilroy back, because look at what he's done. It's JJ coming back to episode 9, isn't it? It's only going to go one way.
Yeah. And in many ways, I think Andor's brought some credibility back to Star Wars, where it wasn't helping people's careers, I don't think, to be involved in a Star Wars project. I think Andor's turned that around a little bit. And I look at 2 characters, and you look at Supervisor Partagas, you look at Kayla, who were both probably non-consequential castings at the time that they were casted, who by the end of season 2 were front and center lead prominent characters, crucial to the entire show. So as an actor, you've got to think, okay, I've been offered a role in Star Wars. It's maybe not the greatest role because it's kind of just a side background character. You've got to then think, but what's it going to grow into?
Absolutely. I mean, like you say, Elizabeth Dallal came straight out of RADA pretty much and walks into Andor, and he's going toe-to-toe with Stellan Skarsgård to the degree that Tony Gilroy's like, wow, that's a great point, Jack. We've got an actress here that we can just hurl great content at, like you can with Genevieve O'Reilly. I mean, Genevieve O'Reilly gets in Revenge of the Sith, gets cast in that film, doesn't get used in the film. I think it's in the back of her head in the scenes after the ship crashes on Coruscant at the beginning of the film, The Invisible Hand. And that's all you see of her, really. And yet they bring the same actress back for Rogue One and Rebels, obviously, and all the other bits and bobs. Point being, and it's your point, really, you get yourself in a Star Wars show, impress and shine, and you know that could be picked up because Lonnie Young, Robert Ems, we had him on Making Tracks last week. We spoke to him at Fan Fun Day. Fantastic actor. He's involved in season 1. He's important in season 1. We know who he is. He stood there opposite Stellan Skarsgård, giving that speech that I think Variety or Hollywood Reporter said was one of the 100 best speeches of the 21st century on small or large screen. And there he is. Season 2, he couldn't be more important. So yeah, to your point, and Particles,
because arguably going back to 1977, Harrison Ford can probably be the only actor to say that Star Wars launched his career. Everybody else would probably say that Star Wars kind of overcame my entire career in a way, where you're looking at some of these actors from Andor and you're thinking, I'm excited to see what they work on next. This is kind of a launch pad for them, and there's probably going to be a lot of actors from that series whose careers you end up following, to see where they go, you know, and that is refreshing to see.
Yeah, very much so. Very much agree.
Just to wrap up this segment, where would you like Star Wars TV to go next? Which is a big question.
It's the $1 million question. Oh, it's a huge question. Wow. I mean, I in very different ways, I would love. I put a half cheeky, half serious pitch out online this week about how I'd love to. Excuse me. Love to see a Star Wars show called Hidden Fortress, which shows you how they evacuate Yavin and find Hoth and all the stuff that happens in between, right up to and just beyond Jedi. Because I think you could tell a story of the rebellion and parallel story of the Empire as well, without needing Palpatine and Vader, without needing Han, Luke, and Leia. You could tell it with a certain amount of characters we came out of Andor, I think, with more characters surviving than we might have expected. So, which is a beautiful benefit, and I'm hoping that means Lucasfilm are already thinking, you know, there's something here. We've got these great actors, and as you just alluded, all of them are just going to go off and do great things. You just know it. Yeah. And if you can keep them invested, keep them involved, okay, maybe you can't get Tony Gilroy back, but maybe Bo Willerman or some of the other writers, or Dan Gilroy or some of the other guys are still involved and come up with these great concepts to keep people invested and involved. I'd love to see that. Further to that, well, I'm selfish. I want to see more Skeleton Crew because I thought it was delightful. But I don't know. I mean, we've got Ahsoka Season 2 coming in. We don't know what's coming after that. So my head tells me we might be moving into the next phase because we've got the Rey films coming. We've got Starfighter coming. They're all post-Episode 9. So I'm thinking probably television might start to skip forward a couple of 3 decades into that era and give us stories in that timeline.
I have spoken for months about my desire to see a young Palpatine project, just because it's got the political edge, it's got the dark edge. I think it could be great. I was incredibly excited to see Naboo on Andor, to the point I thought this is where Palpatine's going to pop up as the democratically elected official for the planet. I was hoping to see Palpatine alongside Jar Jar, but was disappointed. Didn't happen, because I kind of had this running theory in my head that Luthien Rael could be Palpatine's brother. And I say that I say that purely because when he comes into character, and he used to play the flamboyant billionaire Luthien Rael kind of character, and I just thought there's an element of Senator Palpatine in that. Yeah. And I just thought it would have been nice if the rebellion was born out of someone who was from the same blood as Palpatine. Difficult one to pull off creatively, story-wise, I think, but it would have been interesting. It would have been that the entire time it was his own flesh and blood who was kind of against him.
But isn't it delightful, Brian, though, that Andor has captivated us so much that it's got us thinking about all these alternatives, because sometimes it feels very blocked off, boxed off, we know the answers straight away. And this has just given us an absolute multitude of potential coming out the back of it. I think that's one of the treats of Andor for me.
Yeah. Jack thinks that the attitude towards Acolyte Season 2 is going to change. I think it's dead in the water. It's never going to happen. Far too expensive for the audience that it gained. And I don't think it matters now. I think things have moved on dramatically. I don't think we'll see a return to Acolyte. You may see a character pop up in another show, but you're not going to see an Acolyte Season 2. You may see something that takes elements of the story, like the character of Sidious and moves it forward in some way, shape and form. But I don't think you'll see the core of that series back. If anything, you may see Sidious and his apprentice, but that would be at a max, I think.
Yeah, I think the only way that's got a hope of coming around is kind of what I said earlier, is if ILM visually are able to make these things achievable technically at a lower cost, because budget wise, obviously Acolyte was exorbitant.
Yeah.
And as we've just said, Andor is as well. But look at the critical acclaim that Andor's getting. So,
But if we don't get a Palpatine series, which I think is unlikely, I don't think it's likely we'll get that. Very much a Sith-centric series. I believe we need to get to the point where we're not creating villains and killing off villains within projects. You need to create an empire again. You need to create a Sith legacy again. So you need to build up a group of bad guys, whether it's pirates, whether it's something, the Hutts or something. You need to create like Black Sun. You need to create a group where you continuously can go back to and pick bad guys from. So you can have a continuing arc going forward. And the Sith's the obvious one. You've got Jedi throughout time and throughout. You have to have Sith as the opposing group. And so you need to build up and not be afraid to build up, your two main Sith and their acolytes, and then use them as characters going forward and constantly pull from that pool of bad guys.
Yeah, I think that's one of the sad things about Solo not connecting, because they introduced Crimson Dawn, which felt like the modern Black Sun anyway, and so they could have had that running as a background thing to a lot of other series if they'd have so wanted, to move it forward. But it ended up becoming a Marvel Comics thing rather than a live action thing. So, and I don't know. I mean, Maul Shadow Lord is set way back down the timeline. That's not that long after Sith, I don't think. So, if I'm remembering right, so that's way before any of this. Is talking 10 years before Solo. So, but that's not to say a year of real time is a year in the cartoon. They can skip forward 5 years if they want. It's up to them.
Yeah.
But
Sander suggesting an Obi-Wan series. Ewan can do it. Training a new teen actor to play Anakin. I don't think we'll ever see Ewan McGregor back in Star Wars, purely because Ewan McGregor's way too expensive. Especially for Star Wars TV. And he took up the vast majority of the budget for Obi-Wan, and sadly, Anthony Smith, maybe a continuation of the Han Solo movie, like all the great 1970s Marvel Comics, Han and Chewie Adventures, 8 for a Do with 3 rather. Great idea. I was amazed that they didn't have any plans beyond the Han Solo movie to continue that into TV, because respect to all the actors involved, they were all TV level actors, so their fees and whatever for them to do TV were all very much affordable. Any one of the leads in that movie could have been taken and turned into a TV series, and that disappointed me, because as Big Kev says, Solo was great. It was an absolute great film, and disappointing. Lethal Mullet podcast, bring on Tales of the Jedi, the Old Republic version. Still amazed they haven't gone in that direction yet.
Good shout.
It's such rich pickings out there. Jonathan would like to see more Luke Skywalker. It's a shame the character didn't get a proper story between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. I agree. I think they failed that character in the sequel trilogy, I'm afraid. And I would happily see that character recast.
Yes,
in
definitely.
order to tell new stories with that character.
I love Harrison, I love Carrie, I love Mark, but as a Star Wars fan who enjoys the lore and the stories, I want to see more Han, Luke and Leia, and if it means recasting, well, it does mean recasting, so let's recast and be done with it, get on with it.
Jason Momoa has Quinlan Voss in his own series. Good shout. Jack would like an Old Republic series as well. And Lethal Pilot also
George was thinking about it, so why not?
Solo and Rogue One are the best of Disney's run. I agree. In terms of movies, by far stand out. And Big Kev making a comment, Solo suffered from Last Jedi-itis. It certainly didn't help. I think the very public comical production of Solo didn't help it in terms of any kind of credibility with any of the trade publications either. So it was on a hiding to nothing before it started, I think.
Yeah, it was 300 million in the hole, and they didn't promote it, so it was didn't help.
A shame. That's it for this week's Jabba's Court. We've had quite an interesting debate and covered quite a lot of ground there. If you're watching live, we're going to go back to Good Morning Tatooine and cover the rest of the week's news. But that's it for this week's debate. Of course, you can find Jabba's Court, part of Good Morning Tatooine, your weekly recap, follow like Star Wars news, live streaming every Sunday at 9 p.m. in the UK, 4 p.m. in New York, and released every Wednesday at 7 p.m. as its own show. And thank you for watching. Back to Good Morning Tatooine. And I'm going to throw in one last comment. A Prison Break series with Dedra.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think she can swim?
I wouldn't put anything past that woman. Just when she's swimming, don't do that on the top of her head, because that doesn't help. I promise you.
When people like dunk you, that's kind of, you get a series of Krennic dunking her. The great thing about it is you can bring the character of Dedra back.
This is true. This is very true.
I would
just do a new series of Orange is the New Black and just set it on Narkina too.
In The Mandalorian, they've kind of got the Dark Council kind of Imperials. She could quite happily pop up there as an Imperial commander of a planet somewhere.
It's not that long. It's not that further down the timeline. You're only talking, 10 years, 11 years, something like that, maybe. So, doable.
Definitely.
Another way out.
Another way out. Moving on from Star Wars TV, let's talk some Star Wars gaming, because it's been a big month for Star Wars games. Darth Jar Jar is now a playable character in Fortnite. We've seen the introduction of an AI-voiced Darth Vader, which has been... I'm looking for the right words. It's been excruciating to watch some of the videos of Darth Vader and the rather offensive things that he's able to say, and how that's not predicted by anyone.
Don't you think it is, Bri? Don't you think it is predicted, and that they kind of know that this is going to go viral and get out there? It's a bit like the old Darth Vader Tom voice, isn't it? Underbound.
I get it is, but what credibility does it add to the character of Vader? It just destroys his credibility. Because if you do anything with the character of Vader now, what you're going to get in the replies is videos of him, of James Earl Jones saying very offensive things about all sorts of people.
I know. Oh, I get it. I get it. It's marketing people, isn't it? It's PR people that don't quite get the legacy of it.
As Big Kev says, you can ask Vader about the Disney sequels and he bashes them. You know, AI tells the truth. And Christy, I know quite a few of my friends have gone to Star Wars movies through Fortnite. Very true. I actually, because I slagged it off in last week's show, because I don't know anything about it, I don't understand it. I played it for 5 minutes just to get an idea of it. I still don't know much about it, other than it is quite a fun run around and shoot people kind of game. But yeah, it's interesting. I just kind of feel sorry that a voice like James Earl Jones and a character as iconic as Darth Vader has now been made a bit of a laughingstock, and it just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I get that. Totally get that.
So that's Fortnite. Star Wars Outlaws had a huge upgrade with a new DLC, A Pirate's Fortune, as well. And that introduced Hondo, the pirate, to the game as well. And other news that's going to come later this year, Destiny 2 has now got its own expansion, a new expansion. If you buy the ultimate version of the expansion, you get Star Wars content and characters included in that. So we're going to see how that is going to play out in Destiny 2 in December when that's released. The interesting thing about that is that Destiny 2 are kind of describing it as not just a token PR gesture that they've actually got significant plans for what they plan to do with the Star Wars elements. And so it's interesting because I follow an account on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it, who basically every day posts that Star Wars Battlefront 3 has not come out today. That's what everyone wants, because everyone wants a Star Wars run-around shooter.
Yeah.
In terms of Destiny 2 and Fortnite, where you're licensing out Star Wars content into those games, that's basically what you're providing. So surely you must know that's what people want.
Yeah.
Big Kev's going to teach me Fortnite. That's a scary thought. Jack making a comment, his daughter loves Fortnite, and he gets the full rundown on it. I can't criticise Fortnite. I can understand how people like it. I haven't played 5 minutes of it to get an understanding of it. I can understand how people like it. Jack's also making a comment that Star Wars Outlaws is the most underrated Star Wars game ever. I actually think Star Wars Outlaws had the potential to be a great Star Wars game. I think the fact that they've become obsessed by a continuity in the story and only letting you play a female character in it ruins it. I think it's much more fun in those kind of games where you can play any type of character, male, female, alien, whatever, and the storyline adapts for that. Once again, I will bring up Skyrim, the greatest computer game ever made, where you can play any type of character from across the game, from the start, 10 different characters, let's say. And the story that you experience changes based on the character you choose and the decisions that you choose throughout the game. And that's what Star Wars Outlaws should have sought to achieve. The fact that they've focused more on having a story they could bring into canon over the game ruined the potential of that game, in my opinion.
It's a bit like the old Revenge of the Sith game that came out 20 years ago. We put a piece on Fanfleet this week about how, you could play that game and, Anakin could win. Anakin could win and beat Obi-Wan. Anakin could win and beat Palpatine and rule the galaxy. And, so the whole point is you're given a setting and then your skills, your capability as a gamer or whatever leads you in, different alternate sliding doors directions. It still blows my mind that, oh God, when did Galaxies come out? 2005, something like that?
Yeah.
I was playing, I'm not a gamer at all. I barely have time to turn the thing on, but when I was playing Galaxies a little bit, I designed my character. I made my character like my fanfic character, Yan. I made him 7 foot tall, a big guy, long hair, and I designed him to look like how I wanted him to look. And that was getting on for 20 years ago. So if you could do it then, why can't you do it now?
Sanders saying A Pirate's Fortune has a great story, and I'm guessing he means Hondo, as in Top Farmers usually. He's trying to trick me there into the Holdo maneuver. It's not going to happen.
No.
But yeah, there's let me bring up. Let's see if I can bring up. It's not going to happen, is it? Here we go. Let's bring up the Father Tracks website. I'm going to try and find this article. Here we go. Can you see I was looking and going holiday to Turkey there?
Very good.
I'm trying to find the article you had in the gaming. Let me scroll down. Look at all the content.
Just go up.
On
you just passed it. You just passed it. You just passed it. Go down. Go down. Go down. Go down. Go down. Keep going. Keep going up. There you are. There you
are. Renegades. That's the extra that's coming to Star Wars Destiny 2, but you need to get the Ultimate Edition to get all the Star Wars content. I'm scrolling down. Yeah, that was the extra bit in Fortnite. You can now unlock General Grievous, including in his original design form, which I thought was a great little tease in his kind of, I don't know, his combat garb, would you call it? I don't know how you describe it. And of course, the other news in the Disney Star Wars front as well, or the Lucasfilm content front. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle being nominated for 6 awards at the Develop Star Wars, taking place at the Brighton Dome in July as well. So credit to them. I haven't played that game at all yet. But yeah, a great month shaping up to be for Star Wars gaming content everywhere, and always great to see. And I'm playing Monopoly Go at the moment. That's got a Star Wars packs in it. So if you're playing Monopoly Go, look out for me on the Monopoly Go Facebook group in the UK and add me as a friend and send me some stickers that I'm missing.
What's your online name, Bri? What's your game tag? What's your name?
I don't know if I am under Monopoly Go. You need to share the Monopoly Go code. So everyone's got a code which is like 9 or 10 digits long. So you need to find me in the Monopoly Go Facebook group. And Paul Naylor is in there, and so's Darth Elvis is in there as well. Darth Elvis stole 330 million from my bank this week. Unbelievable. I went to sleep and I had like a couple of billion in my bank, and before I knew it, Darth Elvis had like stole all that money from me in the middle of the night. Terrible. But I'm about 150 out of the 200 stickers, and I'm starting to struggle.
I fell for you.
I have to play it every day. It's an addiction now. But yeah, it's Star Wars gaming is looking up. I think there's a lot of interesting things coming on the horizon, Star Wars games wise. I'm intrigued by Zero Company. I know a lot of people didn't want that style of game, but I kind of like the concept. I like the group that you get to pull together.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people didn't want a tactical turn point game, but you've got to have a variety. I think Kev's asked a question. I can steal money from. How do I get in this game? Download the Monopoly Go app. Until July, it's Star Wars themed. You can damage my landmarks and you can steal money from my bank every day, Kev, to your delight. And I'd built up billions. I had billions saved up in the game that I'd earned through hard work, and just Paul Naylor and Darth Elvis just stealing it from me. Zero Company also had the best poster at Celebration. The design of it looks phenomenal in terms of concept work. I don't know whether a tactical turn-by-turn game will be a success, but I like the concept. So Star Wars gaming's on the up. And last on the news front, Star Wars literature arriving in October from author Kwame Mimbala is The Last Order, his debut Star Wars novel, and started purely because he made a tweet about his love of Star Wars, and it's now blown into a full-on Rise of Skywalker novel featuring Finn and Janna. This kind of links back to our first story of the night where we talked about John Boyega and will he come back. I often think when you bring a character into Star Wars publications, it means that character's free to play with, and so that character doesn't have a live-action feature. But who knows? But just based on the design of the front of the novel, Kwame is getting big billing here. So Lucasfilm very excited to be working with him on this.
They seem to be. I can't remember. Well, when did 34 years since Timothy Zahn wrote his first Star Wars book? I don't remember Timothy Zahn ever having his name headlined above Star Wars in barely readable, smallest logo I've ever seen of a Star Wars logo on the cover of a book before.
Yeah.
But maybe that's a temporary cover. Maybe that's a placeholder cover. I don't know, but that's an unusual choice, I've got to say. I'm very interested. I think Janna and Finn, there's definitely a big story to tell, because that was one of the aspects of Rise of Skywalker I really liked, was their connection, as former First Order troopers. There's definitely a story there. We know Lando was going to sort of sit down with Janna and, she didn't know her history, and his last line was, let's find out, sort of thing. So there's stories to tell there. So I'm interested in seeing where that goes. But that cover is a choice. It really is. I don't remember ever seeing anyone's name that sort of front and centre like that.
I'm kind of disappointed a little bit that we're going back to Imperial's, let's call it the Final Order, post the Rise of Skywalker, because it kind of felt done at that point. If it had been pre the Rise of Skywalker and it had been more in their youth when they were both in the First Order, that might have been more appealing to me. Because it kind of felt like Episode 9 had to be an end point, and it kind of had to bookend the Republic versus the Empire. And so I'm kind of a little bit not sure if I want another story along that line. But we'll have to wait and see what the story is actually going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think having them in their First Order outfits is a visual. I like that element actually, because otherwise Finn doesn't have an iconic outfit, and neither does Janna in that sense.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Seeing Finn in that armor is a very recognizable moment from Force Awakens, and Janna, we never saw her in that armor, but it makes all the sense. So I kind of get that, and I like the color schemes and such. It's the placement of the name that I'm kind of bamboozled by. I think we said earlier, if Stephen King was writing a Star Wars novel, I don't think he'd expect his name to be above the Star Wars logo quite that dominantly. No. But nevertheless, I don't know anything about the story, so...
Yeah. Sander says maybe the Stormtrooper parts are flashbacks. Could be. Very good point.
Yeah,
and as Matt says, a book sold out with a tweet. Weird. To be fair, if Lucasfilm did something off the back of one of my tweets, that would be weird.
I don't know Kwame's work. I'm saying all these things like I'm knocking him. I'm not knocking him.
I'm not knocking him at all, because by all regards, a very respected author, very passionate, and had very clear ideas as what he thought the direction that Star Wars should go. So I am interested. Just when I saw this artwork, I didn't think it was official artwork to start with, because I thought, like, as you kind of mentioned, like the font there, it's very unusual that Star Wars is not the main lead here. That the author's billing is as big as the title of the book. It's an odd choice, and a lot of pressure on that author now.
Huge, absolutely huge. Like I say, if that was J.K. Rowling's name up on the cover of the book, it'd be, that's one thing. But being an author coming into Star Wars, clearly he's a fan. But not having the Star Wars logo be prominent, it's almost a by the by that it's a Star Wars novel. That element feels like it should be a lot more prominent.
If you put J.K. Rowling's name in a Star Wars book, I would love to see the tweets that day.
That could be an interesting one.
Yeah, that would be a good week. That would be a fantastic week. The comments would be wonderful.
Yes, I think we'd be doing an emergency GMT on that one.
Yeah, definitely. That would be an interesting day. And again, going back to our earlier storyline on Ryan getting the role as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, at this very point in time, there's kids not too different an age group from ourselves who are getting cast as the three leads in Harry Potter. So interesting times. And coming to TV streaming as the projects on the horizon.
Yeah, it does feel like we're kind of reaching the next level or the next phase of a lot of things, cinematically and television-wise. It does feel like the next bit is about to start, whatever that might be. But certainly in the realms of Star Wars, going back to Jabba's Court, what's next for Star Wars? You've kind of started a new generation with the Skeleton Crew kids, of kids of that age that you can move forward and run with. But there's still so many stories to tell in the Andor era, and there's so many stories still within the OT you can tell without stepping on toes or worrying about recasting overtly, even though I increasingly passionately think that they should, because it's all about the stories. It's not, you can't be slavishly adhering to the look of an actor. It's kind of got beyond that now. If you want to tell the stories and do it properly, that's why Benjamin Bratt came into Andor, because Bail Organa needed to be in that story and Jimmy Smits wasn't available. So that's just the way we've got to think, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That is us at the end of this week's news, but the news never stops, because every single day you can head to fantatracks.com and get all the Star Wars news you could possibly want, from films, TV, collecting, fashion, gaming, literature, music and art. Lots of interviews, event coverage, podcasts and reviews. And you can also head to Star Wars social media, where you'll find us on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, you name it. And Mark, tell us what's coming up on Father Tracks Radio this week.
Absolutely. So on, hopefully, fingers crossed, I am working away this week a little bit, so it might be a little bit later, but hopefully Tuesday we'll have episode 224 of Making Tracks. And also we are waiting on, what are we doing now? On Wednesday we're speaking with Joe from Rule the Galaxy, our wash-up episode on season 2 of Andor, so that will be out later in the week. And I know Johanna and Claire are recording Planet Leia this week, so fingers crossed if the stars align, that will be out hopefully Friday. And I do know that the Desert Planet guys are working on something as well. So I don't think we're too far away from having new episodes of all of that. I'm cooking up a cannon fodder with an author I shall talk to you about later, which I'm very excited about. And I know myself and Paul, when he's back from his jollies, will be doing the next Start Your Engine. So yes, there's lots going on at the moment.
On Father Tracks TV, we'll be back next Sunday with another episode of Good Morning Tatooine live, 9 p.m. in the UK, 4 p.m. in New York. We'll have Jabba's Court out on Wednesday. Lots more content coming from Celebration and Father Tracks TV as well. And at some point there will be regular live streaming when I have time in my life to actually play a Star Wars game. And
yes.
Just to keep Big Kev happy, we will bring back Paul Naylor next week. He will be back with me to co-host Good Morning Tatooine. And we're going to be starting to review Andor. We're also planning to do a live stream episode where we watch Rogue One and alongside the ending of Andor. So we'll watch episode 12 of Andor straight into Rogue One as well. And we'll maybe get a group of Fanthas on some evening whilst we do that and live stream and get everyone's thoughts. Does it change your opinion on Rogue One? What were your thoughts on this finale of Andor? Big questions to be asked.
Big questions. It did, but we'll save it for the live stream. That's a good idea.
Save it for the live stream. Thank you very much, Mr. Newbold, for stepping in this week while Paul suns himself and the Costas. And we have to put up with the beautiful weather in the UK. We can't complain at the moment. It's been
exactly
something special the last few weeks. More Star Wars news coming at us this week. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but it will be interesting and exciting, I'm sure. I imagine we're going to start to see some speculation as to what's happening with Ahsoka very, very shortly, as it's heavily into filming now. Rumours will
good
start
few weeks in now,
circulate, I think, and there's going to be lots of convention appearances from cast and crew from that show across the UK this summer as well, whilst they're filming here and they get time off. So interesting to see what develops on that front. And it won't be too long before we're promoting The Mandalorian Grogu as well. And interesting to see what happens over the summer in terms of promotion for that. Will we get a public teaser for the first time?
Let's hope. I hope we do. I mean, we had some good little bits at Celebration. So given that we're now pretty much within a year of the film coming out, then and it's in the can and been in the can for a long time, let's hope.
Yeah. So that's it for this week. So it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
Yeah, it is. So good night, everyone.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on FanthaTracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at Fantha Tracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow Fantha Tracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live shows.